That's good.
Yeah.
So how's things out in Lubbock?
Uh, well, I was going to say dry, but it's actually a little overcast today. We
Oh,
might
really?
actually get a little bit of sprinkled this afternoon.
Well, that's nothing wrong with that out there where you're at. I'm
No?
aware. I used to live in Phoenix for quite a while out in Arizona.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not as bad as Phoenix,
Yeah.
but I was going to say, what brings somebody from Florida to lovely Lubbock?
Well, looks like you guys might need some help, I guess.
Wow, that's always a thing.
Yeah. 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 Well, that's cool. Oh, so
Couple more minutes. We should have them joining in shortly.
oh, well, that's good. Yeah, we got some sun out there today. We haven't had any in a while.
Been lots of rain lately.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too happy about that. That's why I live in the sunshine state, because I want sunshine. Can't deal with the lived in Ohio, or I grew up in Ohio, and you can be up there and not see anything not see the sun for 2 months.
Oh, geez. No, we have the exact opposite problem.
Yeah.
You might not see the
There's
clouds for 2 months.
there's the boss. There he is. Good. Okay. He's muted. Got his mic muted there.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
There he is. All right.
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, good. How you doing today, Mitchell?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing well.
Good.
Screen
Good.
tracking. Oh, okay. We'll do. Going to adjust my settings.
Cool.
Can you hear us, Leroy? You got your mic on and everything, so we can get started?
Yeah, it looks like he's muted too. There he goes.
There he is. Oh. Is your mic working, Leroy?
Can you hear me?
There
Yes.
he is.
Okay, there you go.
All right. All right. Well, I know we're right on time, so let's go ahead and get started. I guess we can start with introductions. I'm Jubal Mann. I'm the distribution design engineering supervisor. This position will be reporting directly to me. To my side over there is Leroy Martinez. If you want to tell him a little bit, Leroy.
Mitchell, I'm the engineering project coordinator too. I do a lot of developers, contractors, stuff like that. That's basically what my job is, to just kind of see what kind of services they need and stuff like that, and deal with them on that end.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
I'm Luke Miller. I'm the engineering manager, so I'm over distribution design, but then also our transmission and substation engineering as well. So glad to have you talking to us today.
Yeah. Same here.
Oh, excellent. So we got a couple little things we'll take care of first. I'm assuming you read through the job description that was posted online. I know it's probably a little confusing because I posted it at up to 3 different levels depending upon qualifications.
Oh, so that's what that is. Okay. I was wondering.
Yes. Yeah, it's 3 different levels depending upon qualifications. So I'm hiring at any of the levels.
Okay.
Depending upon the qualifications of the individual applying. So if you read through that, Because normally we'd have you sign this, but I can take it verbally. If you can perform the duties that are listed on there for the area that you're qualified for, with or without accommodations, then you can just respond in the affirmative.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Got that one, get that one out of the way. Now, the way we go through this is we've got a list of questions. These are the same questions we'll be asking everyone. And we'll take turns asking the questions. So don't worry if there's a little bit of a silence, because we got to take notes as you answer the questions for us. So we'll go through and do that. And we're just going to take turns. We're going to rotate through asking questions. This is our opportunity to get to know about you. So please feel free to explain your answers as thoroughly as you see fit, okay, so that we get a good picture about you, okay?
Okay.
All right, Leroy, why don't you start us off today?
Okay. Mitchell, the panel has a copy of your resume. Tell us a little bit about how your experience and education has prepared you to assume this position and add value to LPNL.
Well, I've been in this business since I was 16 years old. Went into a power lineman school junior and senior year, and I've worked for probably close to a dozen different power companies over the last 51 years. And I've got a PMP. I'm looking at the project manager job here. The other two, I'm not even interested in. If I can't do project management, then I'm not going to go to the other ones. I've done that many times, but anyway, I've worked a lot of different places and gotten education. I got my PMP. I got my 3 degrees, my bachelor's in business. But for the most part, I had my own company where we did distribution design for a lot of major power companies. Did a lot of work out in Arizona for Arizona Public Service. A lot from for Florida Power and Light out here, and JEA, which is Jacksonville Electric. So I've been there and done all kinds of stuff in this realm. I hope that answers what you're asking.
Well, that works. Thank you, sir. All right, Luke, if you want to go next.
All right, next question is, what motivates you as it relates to your career?
I like making customers happy. I mean, that's one of my biggest things. If I go out and I work my butt off and they're happy about it and I give them a good product, it just makes me want to go out and work even harder the next time. And I've got letters of recommendation like Duke or for Cable One, director of Western United States. I worked with him for quite a while, and that I don't know if you got to see that letter or if it was included in anything, but it's in my LinkedIn profile stuff. So that I didn't ask for that letter. He just sent it to me. So that was pretty nice. He's retired now. We talk every now and then. So yeah, that's the main thing, is going out there and doing stuff that people don't expect you to be able to do. That is kind of cool to be able to go out and somebody say, "Oh, you can't do that." Oh, watch this.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Do you prefer to work as part of a team or independently?
Oh boy, yeah, that's a difficult question, because I can do both. Um, it just depends on the job. You know, the project manager, you can't really work independently, but when I was going out and doing joint use stuff for Cable One, I worked independently, and it was, you know, I did what I did, and I could do what I could do, and everybody was happy, and we were done. So I mean, I can, you know, I'm ambidextrous on that. I can go either way. In fact, when I was doing work for APS, I worked quite a bit with you know, with the cable companies and for joint use and stuff. And we created a nice database, and we worked together to make sure that that database we probably had the best joint use department in the country at that point in time. We were processing applications like, you know, we you know, it used to take like 45 to 60 days, and then we got down an average of 2 weeks, and we could process one in a day if we had to. So, and that was all born out of working where we'd have meetings once every month, and we'd, you know, so we'd start in on it and say, okay, well, what do you think, and how would you like to see this? You want any drop down menus, that sort of thing, and, you know, creating the database that processed all the applications, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah. Go ahead, Leroy.
So describe the work environment or culture in which you are most productive and happy.
Well, I suppose the work most, I guess it depends on what the work is. Again, if I'm, you know, if I have a task to do and it's just me, then I'm good with just like I say, like I said before, was working with me. The environment I like the most is when I, you know, been given some instruction and say, okay, this is what we want to do, and then I just do it. You know, I don't like to be in an environment that says you have to do it this way. And it's, unless of course there's a good reason for it, you know.
Yeah.
If there's a good reason for it, fine. But you know, I had one outfit that I was doing a little bit of work for and doing project management for while we're a contract thing, and I wanted to use Microsoft Project to do critical path and keep track of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can't do that. I said, well, why? Well, because, you know, the government ain't going to allow you to do that. And I said, well, I'll just do it on my own computer, you know, and then I can put it into whatever you want, but at least I'll have it on. No, can't do that. I'm not big on that sort of thing, you know, because I'm very, very high tech guy. And if I can come up with some things that will make the process faster and the quality just as good or preferably higher, then I want to go there. And that's the kind of work environment I like, is that they let me have the freedom to be able to amaze people.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Do you have electric utility field construction experience? And if so, could you explain that?
Yeah. I started out when I was 16 in power lineman school. So there's 2 years right there, digging holes and climbing poles. And went out and got a job with Ohio Power on the line crew. And then I was going to school, you know, at night to get my associate's degree in electrical engineering, and then we had a manager come up to me one day and said, "Hey, how long did it take you to finish up your degree if you got, if you could do it full time? And I said, well, about 9 months. And he said, well, if we give you a 9 months leave of absence, you can get your associate's degree in electrical engineering. We'll put you into engineering. I said, sure. I did that. And that's how I got into engineering. So I've got about 4 or 5 years of construction. And I think that's real important. In fact, the 2 years I had in that power lineman school is probably the best education I got. Because I'm big on field work. I'm big on going out and talking to the crews. And that's how I started out, is when I got into engineering and I'd put out a job, when I knew it was going to be built, I'd go out to the crews. I'd say, okay, what did I do wrong? And I'd talk to them. And, so that's huge on my part.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So this one, you'll probably have some stuff here too. Do you have any electric utility design experience? Same thing. Just explain if you do.
Not really very much. Only about 40 years worth. That was my whole company was distribution design consultants. So, I've done electric utility design work from anywhere from Ohio to Indiana to Michigan to Florida to Arizona, and all over the place. So yeah, just a little bit.
And I'm assuming you've handled all the different various areas.
Yeah, I've done anything that needs to be done, I've done. Somebody said, well, start listing them. It's like, holy crap, are you kidding? It was like what? Road widenings, feeder, new feeder builds, rebuilds to feeders, underground overhead, conversions and, all kinds of stuff, everything that you can think of, done, road crossings, which is interesting, to get permits for road crossings going across the highways and stuff. You got to survey in the road crossing so you can get a plan and profile view done. And I would survey it in myself. I got a TopCon GPS surveying unit, and then I'd take a drone and do a drone video of the crossing, upload it to YouTube, put the link on the PDF file that we sent to get the permit. That way the DOT didn't have to go out and look at the job. They could just click on the link and there's a video of the whole job and everything explained to what we're doing. So, yeah.
Well, sounds like a little bit there.
Yeah.
Hey, Mitchell, do you have staking and surveying experience or knowledge?
Yeah. In fact, when I was working I was the engineering supervisor for Licking Road Electric in Ohio. We got a TopCon surveying unit, and it was neat because when we would, we got hills there in that part of Ohio, and sometimes you have to come.
Hills?
Yeah, and so sometimes you'd have to come off of this hill and then come down through a field and set poles, because this was a co-op. They just kind of went wherever they went, crow flies, and so we would set up to the total station, and we would take a shot at the first pole, take a shot at the second pole, or to the last pole, and then we would get in the data collector and punch in the poles along that route. So if we wanted to put them in at, say, 250 foot spans, we put that in there, and then you hit the data collector and say, okay, let's do a stake out here, and it would tell you to turn your total station to a certain degrees, and then you go out there with your prism and you would shoot it with the laser, and it'd tell you either go or come so many feet, so many inches, until you got it. And this neat part about it, you're sitting here off to the side. You're not in line with the poles, you're off to the side. And it is so cool to get up to the first pole and look down through this field and see all these stakes down through there with the ribbons flying in the air, and they're all perfect aligned. That's cool stuff, you know. Sorry, I'm probably getting a little wordy about it, but yes, I've done that before.
Okay.
All right, Mitchell. Can you tell me about a manager or supervisor or a team with which you've had the most effective relationship and why?
Oh boy. Well, Cable One is probably the number one. Dick Rom, he was the director of the Western United States, the engineering director for the Western United States, and we worked quite well together. He told me what he wanted done, and I did it. You know, he didn't fiddle. He was very happy with what we did. In fact, we still talk to this day. He's retired in Boise, Idaho, and we just really had a really good time, and it was fun. I mean, we had fun because we were doing stuff that people just didn't know. You know, they just weren't really up on. You know, because we were doing a lot of high tech stuff. You know, we were measuring pole attachments. You know, so we could know where to attach the fiber. Or we were doing mostly fiber. We did a fiber build out in Arizona, like 500 miles worth of fiber. You know, we were going through tunnels and over mountains and all kinds of stuff. And and he let me do my thing. He said, "Go do your stuff." And we, to find the stuff on, getting measurements on the poles. Put the fiber. We'd use a laser and tablet, and we'd have the laser hooked to the Bluetooth. Via Bluetooth to the tablet. So when you took a picture of the pole height, back in the old days, we used to use sticks. Those yellow measuring sticks. You guys probably have been using those before. And, so I stopped doing that and used a laser, and it cut the time way down, So, yeah. Yeah, Dick was a great guy.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. On to another knowledge question. What is the purpose of a GIS system, and how does it affect the engineering department, or how can it affect the engineering department?
Well, okay, graphic information system. Okay, that's a mapping system. So, it just depends on what you have in it. I mean, you can have pole sizes. You can have what's on the pole. You can have all kinds of stuff sit on there. I mean, this is one of the things when I would go out and do the surveys using my GPS system, you'd have to get the right coordinate system in, because when you go to give the file, the AutoCAD file to the GIS people, then it had to upload into their GIS system, and if you didn't have the right coordinate system, it would just be out in space, So if you want to hook a nice database to your GIS system, then that way you can click on a pole, and you can even get as much as having a picture of the pole, and everything that's on the pole. And I don't know how you guys do your work orders and stuff for that sort of thing, but like with AEP, when I was working there, if you click on a pole, it would give you a P405, which is a 40 class 5 pole, a PTP, which is a pole top pin, a CPI1, which is a insulator, and a PC3, which is a pole clevis 3 inch. So it's pretty cool stuff if you can. It just depends on how complicated you want to get to it.
Okay.
It's starting from a substation and proceeding all the way to the customer meter base. List and describe the typical components of a distribution feeder you might encounter along the way.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Okay, well, you're gonna come out of your substation probably to something like, depending on how you do it. Yeah, normally they'll come out to a riser pole, so you're gonna have your feeder riser on it. You know, depending on what size feeder it is, you know, you're gonna have either 1,000 MCM they call million or 750 probably, and rise up on the pole, and you're going to have some disconnects up there, and of course you're going to be going down there and you're going to have your feeder, and your feeder's going to be anywhere from probably 795, maybe 336, that sort of thing. That's more the conductor size for your normal feeder and stuff. And you'll have some reclosers in there somewhere, depending on where you're, how you got your stuff set up. You might even use a SOG, which is it's kind of like a self-healing system, which it's okay for overhead. I'm doing some work with Duke that they were doing it in underground, which was dangerous if you ask me. But anyway, you're going to be doing your feeder down there, and then you'll have taps, and you'll probably have single phase taps. You'll have 3-phase taps. They're all going to have fuses on them. If you have a 3-phase buck pole that is a major 3-phase line, you might even have reclosers on that, depending on what you got down the line, and how you want to protect that line. But the taps, the fuses sizes will probably be fused according to a couple different ways. One would be the wire size and the load, obviously. One would be a coordination size. In other words, you can't put it like we'd call it 10T or maybe even a 10 amp fuse downstream from 50, because they wouldn't coordinate. Your 10 would blow before the 50, and you can't have that. But if you have a tap, then that's how that works. And of course you'll go from 3-phase maybe to 2-phase, single phase, maybe. Of course you will sooner or later. You're going to get the single phase taps and stuff like that. And like I say, in between there you'll have maybe even have some regulators. I mean, depending on how far you want to go. I don't know how long your system is, or whether you even have regulators. Some small systems don't have them, and it just depends on how you want to get all that set up. But let me see here: regulators, reclosers. You might even have some capacitor banks to get, if you got a lot of industrial sort of load, then some of that stuff gets out of phase, so you got to use the cap banks to put them back into phase and all that sort of thing. So what else? That's kind of the highlights anyway. I mean, when you get into the house, you're going to have to figure out what size house it is, so you can size the transformer. You're going to have to figure out what size air conditioning unit or heat pump, whatever it is. Locked rotor amps, so you can do flicker and voltage drop calculations, to get the service to the house. Houses usually are 100 to 200 amp services. You might even find a couple of them out nowadays that are 400 amp, but that's not normally, that doesn't normally happen on residential unless it's a big house. And then you'll have your commercial outfits, and so you might start at you could have as little as 100 amp for commercial. It just depends on what it is. Could be a mom and pop ice cream stand next door, it only needs 100 amp. But if you get anything above 400 amp, you're going to have to use CTs, current transformers, to do the metering. Am I getting too wordy here?
No, I think you've hit all the high points there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Mitchell, what strengths do you think would be most important in a electrical designer or project coordinator position?
Well, I think, well, a designer and coordinator probably might be two different kinds, I suppose. Designer, boy, I tell you what, and I'm biased, I'll admit, but to me, the best designers have always been linemen because they know what'll work and what can't work. If you get designers out there that haven't been out in the field and done the field work, then sometimes they don't get the idea that, wow, if I put the pole here, they can set it with a truck. If I put it over there, then they're going to have to dig the hole and set it by hand. And that could just be a matter of 5 feet. And, by being on crew, that sort of thing. And you know what they can get to and how to get to it and everything. You got to be able to envision what's going to happen in the future, which is kind of weird, but you don't want to put poles where somebody's going to hit them. This is another thing, is that somebody might put a pole on a corner, on a road turn, and it's like, well, if you get ice or whatever, or rain or something like that, somebody's going to plow right into that pole. You don't want that there, so you kind of got to know everything from top to bottom. Now, as far as project manager goes, or coordinator, I don't know what I've got it here two ways: project manager and coordinator. Is that the same thing, or are they those two different?
Well, it's more of a progression system for our stuff. The coordinator just handles more complicated things that go all the way up to like subdivisions, large commercial, larger scale projects, as it were. It's more of an advancement system, like going from an apprentice to a foreman kind of thing.
Okay,
to
so
keep it in
coordinators like the top dog.
Yes.
Okay. Just so on. Okay, with coordinators and stuff like that, you got to be able to know the business well enough to be able to look. I would, if it was me, I would be looking at plans and how things were going to get built, so I could determine whether we're going to have problems down the road. And that's the thing with me, is that I've got so much experience, is that I can see stuff that, like, yeah, you ain't wanting to do it that way. And to be able to coordinate whoever you need to coordinate with, whether you're coordinating with the city or say road widenings or something like that, where you got to coordinate with the DOT and all that sort of thing. You got to kind of got to know how all that works. And the neat part about my background is I've done all that, and I think that having the experience in doing all that and working with all these people is probably pretty key.
Yeah. All right. What do you think? And this one, you should have this one. What do you think the steps are in completing a typical project from the beginning of the design all the way to its completion? What are the typical steps in a project?
Well, kind of depends on what the project is. You want to give me a hint on what the project is?
You can be generic or specific.
Okay.
You can talk about projects. You're a PMP, so you can talk about a project as a generic thing, or you can talk about say you can pretend there's a specific project.
Okay.
Either way you want to handle it.
Well, you're going to have somebody who's going to need the service. Okay, so they're going to come to you and they're going to say, "Hey, I need you to, get me service here at this new grocery store I'm going to be putting in." And you say, "Okay, well." And so then in other words, you're going to have an application for the service. And then that application, that's from customer service people. And then that application will go to the engineering department. The engineering department is going to have to assign the designer to go out and talk with the builder and try to find out, what he's wanting. I mean, it should be all in the application and everything. But it's always very nice to go out and touch base with them so they know who you are and you know who they are. And then you're gonna have to figure out whether you're gonna have to, get any permits from DOT and all that sort of thing, and whether you're gonna have to have, any kind of, permits that have to be gotten to build your line to the place. And then once you figure all that out, then the designer's gonna go out and start doing the drawings. Now, I don't know how you guys do it. I always went out and surveyed everything in. In other words, I'd survey in the edge of the roads. If I could find a brass cap, for like a center of a road or something like that, I'd survey that in. And then I would dump all that stuff into AutoCAD and start putting together a drawing. And if I could get drawings from the builder, then that's even better. That way you can dump that into your AutoCAD drawing and come up with your drawings and come up with any kind of details that you might need, because you're going to need some details for pad mount transformers or something like that, or duct bank. If you need any kind of a duct bank thing, you're going to have some kind of details on that sort of thing and all that. And then once you get all that stuff done, get all the design done, then it's going to go to the line crew, and then it's going to have to get scheduled. And you have to coordinate all that stuff, make sure that it's scheduled, and get the main line done before the building that you're serving is completed. And then, you can hang transformers or set pad mount transformers, whatever it is. And then you're going to have to stub out the conduits from the transformers or whatever, and waiting for them to get their stuff mounted, to get the meters on there and everything. So if it's a big building, it's going to need CTs, and they're going to have to get a CT cabinet, or if it's just a smaller one, 200 amp thing, you're going to have to give them a meter box. I don't know how you guys do it, but some power companies will supply the meter box. Some power companies say, no, you got to go get your own, which I don't necessarily agree to, because you can get all kinds of crap out there, unless you designate, go here and buy this, so, and then once all that's done and they get the building up and it's all ready and it's gotten their okays from their inspectors and all that stuff, and gets approved, then you pull in your secondary and hook them up. Don't forget the meters. Stick the meters in there too.
Okay, Mitch. Share an experience you had in dealing with a difficult person and how you handle the situation.
A typical person? Is that what you
A
said?
difficult person?
Oh, difficult person. Well, sometimes you got to decide whether it's worth the trouble or not. And that's the key. You get some difficult people out there that think that they have to do a certain way, and it's got to be this way. And one of my favorite sayings is it's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble, it's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And so questioning, I like to question people. Or if they're being difficult, I start asking questions. Well, what do you think about this, and what do you think about that? And usually if you can start getting them to give you ideas, and then you can kind of like give them your ideas, and hopefully you'll come to some sort of conclusion that is good for both people. And so you kind of got to get their buy-in on stuff. That's kind of how I kind of handle it.
All right, thank you. So this position, it requires working in a fast-paced environment. There's numerous active projects at any given time. Do you feel comfortable working in an environment like that? And if so, could you explain?
That's the only kind of environment I work in. It's fast paced. I don't, I don't mess around. In fact, that probably gets me in more trouble than anything, because you're going too fast. Slow down. It's like, sorry, not going to go there. No, I enjoy fast paced stuff. I'm not big on just sitting around and waiting around. It's like, if we're going to get it done, let's get it done now.
Yeah. All right, this one's a scenario. So you meet with a distribution crew foreman at a job site where he has questions regarding a work order that you issued. Okay? He asks if the crew can make some moderate changes to the work order to make the installation easier. What would be your response?
Well, my response would be it depends, and it depends if what the moderate changes they made to make it easier and it doesn't affect the service or the quality of the thing, I'd say fine. It's okay with me. Thank you for asking, because a lot of times they just won't ask; they'll just do it. But if it's something that would affect the quality of the service. In other words, well, we want to put a pole here, and it's like, well, look, guys, that's fine, but now instead of having 100-foot service drop, now we're going to have, 200 feet. Well, we're going to have to set a pole in between, and we're going to have problems with voltage drop and flicker. And I don't ever have any problems with line crew, because I speak fluent line crew. And once you get out there, as long as they know that you've been in their shoes, that they normally don't have any problem with you.
Yeah.
Mitchell, share an example of when you established and accomplished a goal that was personally challenging, and what helped you succeed.
Well, I would say that probably the most challenging thing I had was when I was doing work for Arizona Public Service, APS, out in Phoenix. I was working with the Joint Use Department, and we were trying to put a database, and I mentioned this before, that we're trying to put a database and come up with a way to process applications quickly and easily. And that took a lot of hours. It was a lot of late nights and everything trying to get it all done, because we did it with a website and a database. We had Access database. We had a website that we set up so that the cable companies, and we worked with the cable companies in developing all this stuff. And so the website would be where the cable company come in and put in their application. Before, they would actually write it down on a piece of paper and fax it to us. It's like, well, we got to be able to do a better job than that. And so we come up with the website, and then that would dump everything into the database. And then from the database, we get assigned what we call walkers. Those are the guys that going out and measured everything on the poles. And it would automatically dump into their tablet, because the tablet was connected to, cell phone stuff, And so if we got in an application at 9 o'clock in the morning and they really needed it done, say you had a 20 pole, attachment request, we could get that in, we could look at it, send it out to our walker that would go out and measure everything. He would go out and measure everything, take pictures, all the measurements, send it back, be in the database. We'd look at everything on the database, determine what needed to be raised, lowered, or whatever needs to be done. We do the estimate, send it out to the cable company, and have it to them by 3 o'clock that afternoon. And that was an interesting thing. We sat down with the cable companies. That's how I got work with Dick Rom, is because we worked together on that sort of thing, and it worked out really good. But it was a lot of late night stuff. I had a lady that was doing the access database programming. Poor thing. She worked her butt off too, but man, boy did that work good though.
Hmm.
All right, Mitchell, have you ever worked with plat maps and or site plans? Can you tell us what's the purpose of each of those and what information can be attained from plat maps and site plans?
Okay, well, the plat maps, you're going to be building a subdivision, and so you're going to have maps that are going to show you all the lot lines and everything. And you'll have bearing and distances of each of these lot lines. It's pretty cool because then you can go into your GIS system and punch in all these bearing and distances, and then you'll have everything lined up exactly right. And especially if you're a designer, you put it into AutoCAD, you can punch in, or MicroStation, whatever you guys use, and put that in there if you can't get the AutoCAD file. Back in the old days, we didn't have it. We'd just get it in, and we'd use the bearing and distances and key it in essentially. And the site maps, basically the same thing. I mean, they're going to show you the outline of the property. So you put in your bearing distance, and it's going to show you where the building's going to go, and where they're going to have their service entrance and all that sort of thing. So that's kind of handy to have. That way you can make your drawing look like what's going to happen out there in the field.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, this is the last kind of official question. Can you provide an example of a challenging project you managed and how you overcame the obstacle? Now, you kind of referred to that. You might, yeah. But.
Well, one of the bigger things I did was up in Jacksonville, Florida, that we had Cecil Field, which used to be a naval air station up there, and then the city of Jacksonville took over that naval air station and wanted to make it what they called a premium power park. And so I had probably 4 or 5 designers, and we'd go out. Of course, we'd survey in the most important stuff we were doing. We'd break it down into roadways and all that sort of thing, and figure out where all the, underground is all underground feeder stuff and switches and all that we would set up. So we're basically doing the backbone of there, So going out and trying to get all the, probably most challenging part of it is going out and making sure that you knew where all the underground utilities were, so you wouldn't be putting a duct bank up on top of a water line. You can't do that. So you might want to try, but it doesn't work out very well. And so, that's one of them. The other one was in Arizona when we were doing that 500-mile fiber build out, And I don't know, the challenge of that is just working with the power companies as far as, trying to get applications taken care of. But for the most part, I did most of that myself anyway, so it's kind of like a twofer type of a thing, So, but that's the biggest problem that you run into, is just working with other people that don't have your enthusiasm about getting the job done, So.
All right. Okay, now here is your time for you to have an opportunity to ask us any questions you might have.
Well, anyway, I know about the jobs and everything. I've read all about that. I guess one of the biggest questions I have is, when will you guys make a decision on something like this? I've got other people I'm talking to, but so I'm just kind of curious on what the timeline is for you guys to.
Probably in the next week or two.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks. Next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I was, of course, I looked at the salary range, and I guess mid salary range is probably okay. I think I'm probably worth a little bit more than that, considering my background. But some people don't agree. But hey, kind of whatever you want. But
yeah, we are kind of limited in that respect. But
yeah, right.
We work with what we can.
Yeah, I'm aware. I used to work for the city of Ocala, so I know what you guys have to deal with. It's sometimes
the municipalities are a little harder.
yeah, they're a little bit harder. I know. I try to explain to people. It's like, well, sometimes cheap costs you more than spending some extra money. Because in the long run, all it takes is one mistake, and it could cost you enough money to pay for that guy's salary for a couple of years. So.
Convincing city council of that's the challenging
part. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I know that I had some leeway in that, but it's like, But other than that, I've been looking into housing out that way and everything, and so it looks good. That's you got some decent housing out there. That's the main thing. But I guess the only other thing is that do you guys have anything that you think I might be falling short on? Maybe I didn't explain something exactly right.
I think you described a lot of the different areas that we're looking for, and that's why we ask the questions that span a broad spectrum of experience.
Right.
So we can get an idea of what, because there's people can have experience in different things, and so we don't want to make sure we miss something that's important.
I'm going to make a suggestion to you. I think that, but when you ask a question, you ought to throw this one in there. Ask somebody what an open dollar bank is. In fact, ask them what a bastard bank is, which is the same thing, but nobody hardly ever knows that. You can be impressed if they know what that is, and then when you ask them, okay, what's the voltage? And then ask them, are the two transformers sized the same? And if they're not, then why?
We did. I do some technical questions with the, sometimes for some of the engineering stuff, but I haven't put super technical ones in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mitchell, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I know that, having your business and all the positions you've had, you talked about, I'm sure you've been over some very large projects, but how many projects have you been over, like, at just one time, just you personally, like, oversee? Like, if you had, like, 20, 30, like, that you're all...
Oh, I don't know, probably 50 or so. I was doing work for JEA, Jacksonville Electric. It's a municipal. We were just hammering it. I mean, I've got lists this long of jobs that we were doing. I mean, everything, subdivisions, road widenings, street lighting, and all that stuff. We had to do photometrics and all that stuff. So, I mean, we were juggling. We were the best contractor for engineering that they had. And, they just piled it on us, which is fine. That's why I like it. Yeah, go for it, man. We'll take care of it, because I normally don't work 40-hour weeks. I usually probably work 60 to 70, or whatever it takes to get the job done. That's just how I do it, don't get paid for that, but you know, that's how I work. So yeah, I probably have had 40 or 50 of them all at once. But they're small. Yeah, I mean, you know, they say, oh, well, let's tell me 20 of the largest, biggest jobs you've had. It's like, well, it doesn't work that way. You know, when you're out there doing design, you know, you get a 3-phase job here, a single-phase job there. You might get a rebuild, you know, to where you're rebuilding from single phase to 3-phase, or you might be doing a feeder upgrade from, you know, 4-aught to, you know, 795, you know, but you know, you get so many of them that they just all meld in together. I mean, it's not like, I mean, I can list a couple of jobs like the Cecil Field thing where we're doing the premium power park thing, and then, you know, the stuff that we were doing out in Arizona for Cable One and for APS, but you know, most of them are just relatively small jobs. You know, they're not like big projects that span months at a time. So,
Mitchell, just talking about the experience that you've had and the owning your own business. My main question is, what makes you want to move to Lubbock, Texas, and do this role?
well, I like the West, and you know, because I lived out in Arizona several times, and people say, well, why don't you just keep on doing your own business? It's like, well, it's a pain in the ass. You know, you got to deal with employees. You got to get to work. That's the biggest problem, is trying to get to work, because the power companies are wanting to get the big guys like Black and Veatch and, you know, Bechtel and all those guys that charge 3 times what I do, but won't answer the phone at 7 o'clock at night when you call. But I do, you know. But that's procurement. You know, they think, oh, well, they're going to be better because they're bigger. It's like, yeah, we do bridges, we do skyscrapers, and oh, by the way, yeah, we can do distribution too. And then when they get the contract, what employees they get? Mine. You know. And so I'm getting tired of dealing with it. I'd rather just say, tell me what you want done, I'll maze you, and you know, then I don't have to worry about payroll. I don't have to worry about trying to get more work. That's the biggest thing, is the more work and everything. It's just because back in 2008, man, it was like just hurry up, get it all done. And then literally the next day it was stop everything. What do you want us to finish what we got here? No, stop, you're done. And I'm sitting there going, what? Because I was so busy working, I wasn't paying attention to what was going on out there. I pay attention now, so.
Well, do you have any other questions for us?
No, I don't think so. You know, I know what the job is, and you know, I've had people say, oh, well, don't you think you're a little overqualified? It's like, well, I don't know what that means, you know. I mean, if you can get a T-bone steak for what it costs you for a grilled cheese sandwich, you gonna tell them you don't want it? Nah, you're gonna say no, thank you very much. You make a mistake on this check, it's supposed to be $30 and you got $5 down here. It's like, no, you're gonna say, thank you very much. And that's, you know, that's my response to the overqualified thing. I'm not 25 years old. I'm not 40 years old. You know, saying, oh, you're gonna get bored and move on. Like, move on to where? I don't want to move on. That's my point. Is that I want to stay right there.
Most people from here, they like to retire in Florida.
Yeah. Well,
sounds like you're doing the opposite.
Well, you know, I suppose if somebody had a job here that you know wouldn't hassle me about, oh, you're overqualified. So I've heard all that crap, you know, and it's just, you know, it's like, come on, guys. You know, I'd stay. I mean, I don't have anything against Florida. but you know, I certainly like the way. I always really loved Arizona and out that way. So
Several of the questions throughout the interview, you referenced AutoCAD, MicroStation, just to fill you in on how our roles work. So we're actually designing in our GIS software, which we're using ArcFM Designer for that.
okay.
We have plans to upgrade it. I guess I was curious, has most of the design work that you've done been in AutoCAD and MicroStation, or have
Yeah.
you done some design work where you're drawing directly into the GIS
Well,
platform?
we've done both. I found it being extraordinarily cumbersome. Maybe it's different now. Don't know. It's just that you try to draw a line and you got to wait a couple of seconds before the line actually draws. And that's the problem when you start hooking up the mainframes and all that stuff. So it just depends on how. Maybe it's not that way anymore, but that's how it was. There's a lot of people who are using AUD, which is automated utility design through AutoCAD. And it's okay. It's got a lot of bugs. A MicroStation, they had Intergraph. That's where Salt River project out in Arizona. That's where I started doing all the drafting stuff. In fact, I was the first designer out there to start doing all my drawings on CAD, and we use MicroStation. I really like MicroStation. It's nice. I haven't used MicroStation in a while because hardly anybody uses it. Back then, they had Intergraph. That was their thing. They had these great big old screens in this dark room that these guys would go in and do their stuff, and that was back in the 80s. So.
Well, they used to use, Leroy could probably speak to it. I think we used to use MicroStation here. That was back before I came on board. The system that we currently have is far from perfect. Leroy can attest to. It wasn't implemented fully. And so there's a lot of hassles that our designers and coordinators are currently having to jump through, but we've got plans in the works to upgrade it, and
I can
hopefully
help you with
hopefully
that.
get it, hopefully get it in a spot where it's way more efficient for these guys,
Yeah.
so they're not having to deal with a lot of just what you're talking about, a lot of delays and just having to work through a lot more steps than are necessary to get a job out. So that's something we're working towards, but
Yeah.
we're not there currently.
Well, yeah, there's all kinds of different things. I'm not against the AUD thing. The only thing is there's a lot of bugs. I mean, they have crashes all the time. But see, I do all my drawings on AutoCAD and then import it into AUD and then do the crap that I had to do in there. That way I could get most of my drawings done without any crashes. Someone were trying to do all their drawings, but see, I bought my own AutoCAD, and that's what I do is like, I'll just buy my own AutoCAD and then I can do it on my own computer. And while these guys are sitting there complaining back and forth on the Teams app and everything, how, we're down again. It's shut down again. It's like, oh, I'm still working. So, I would say that to answer your problem that you might have is to have a way you can design it on the PC with regular programs, MicroStation or AutoCAD, and then import it, and then whatever you need to do it there, or I don't know what kind of system you've got. Compatible unit systems are pretty good, which is, like I said, with the AEP, they got a compatible unit system. It's very simple. Like I said, P0 or P405 is the pole, 40 class 5 pole. So, it's very, very simple stuff. A lot of these other guys, they have these great big long numbers that don't make any sense to anybody. And I like to keep things as simple as possible. And I like to design things so people can operate them really well. It's just, like I say, with my laser that I would measure all the pole attachments with, I could do it. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, we use Ike. Well, Ike isn't worth a crap. It doesn't really, you know, excuse me for being blunt, but, you know, I've been behind these guys and I've looked at their measurements, and then I'd measure the exact same poles at the exact same attachment height, and they'd be off as much as 18 inches. And it's like, holy crap, how you do that? You know, and I had another one just recently. They were using some catapult or something like that, and catapult the same thing. They take a picture of the pole and then they estimate. You know, they'd have a little white pole that was 20 feet, and so they'd scale that and then they'd estimate. And I said, that ain't gonna work right. I said, tell you what, and the guy had a sheet of paper of a pole that was right around the corner. I said, come on, go with me. We got in the truck, we went down there, I pulled out my laser and stuff, and I said, okay, here's the measurements, write these down, bing, bing, bing. And I said, okay, what do you have? And they were all off by about 4 to 5 inches. And that makes a difference when you need to have 40 inches, and 5 inches is the difference between you replacing the pole or not. You know. So I get excited about stuff like that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That was my only question, or that's all the questions I had, Jubal.
Okay. All right. Do you have any more questions, Leroy?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. And if you ain't got no more questions for us, then thank you for taking your time.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I sure do appreciate it.
Excellent. You have a great day, sir.
All right, man. You too.